welcome everyone. If you haven't had a chance yet, you can change your name on Zoom, have your name, pronouns, and the collab you're working with. This will help us as we're organizing some breakout rooms and wanting to be strategic in how we do that. So before we begin, let's take a moment to acknowledge the spaces we're occupying. We acknowledge that we occupy the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Tulalip, Snohomish, Still-Gwaamish, and Sauk Seattle tribes. We see you, respect your right to sovereignty and self-determination, and are committed to being better listeners, learners, and in lifting Indigenous voices. So this is our, if you didn't know, we are having two of these. So this is our first of two sessions to talk through data and reporting, and we have a lot to talk through. And because we have many people on this call, we want to make sure we give everyone a chance to share and weigh in on this discussion. So we're going to utilize breakout rooms, and during this first breakout, we're going to give everyone a chance to in your breakout room to introduce themselves and give maybe a brief overview of, I mean, as small as you can of what you do for your collaborative. I know I'll do a lot. So just kind of where you're at or your position there. And then one or two words of where you're coming from coming into this meeting, what you're, just checking in with each other. And but did I go through that too fast for Elise to get breakout rooms going? Okay.
Sorry, I'm still working on it. It'll be like 2 more minutes.
Okay. And so you can see kind of our agenda today. We're gonna talk through some of the backdrop of what we've been doing or what has been done, what we're thinking through, looking at core and what we really want to move forward to, and acknowledging some of the lessons we've been learning in previous attempts to do data and reporting conversations, and have some time for everyone to check in and talk through some different points. I didn't give you all that.
Yeah, so this is we've talked to several Wednesday calls around, we haven't been doing formal reporting this year. We knew that we needed to do kind of a refresh after theory of action, and really acknowledging that was not, didn't work for us collectively as a group. And so, wanted the beginning of 2021 to be a time for us to all get together and kind of refresh what our expectations for sharing information and reporting are. But, with everything going on, here we are in October. Oh, well, better late than never. And so, throughout the last couple of months, we've been kind of giving previews of our thought of like, hey, we'd really like to get together and kind of co-design reporting with you all, kind of check in about what we've done in the first 3 years and what we hope to do in the next 3 years. So this is finally our official time together.
Okay, thank you for your patience. I now have the breakout rooms ready to go. So I will open your rooms and hopefully it looks good. All right, I think we should all be back. Yep. Like we're all here.
Oh, well, welcome back, everyone. Let's get into it. Amanda, are you master of the PowerPoint? Awesome. Too far. Perfect. Okay. Let's talk about why we're here. As I mentioned, we have kind of previewed this thinking that we're doing over the last couple months. We are together for 2 90-minute sessions, one this month, one next month. Our hope is it is part of being able to provide clarity for you all as partners, around, when United Way says stuff, we're in a lot of spaces, we provide a lot of partnership, we say a lot of things. Getting clarity so that what is us speaking from a place of what the funding requirement is, what is a need for information as a partner. So like, hey, we're writing our annual report. Can you help us, with a quote or a story, which is a kind of need that we will have, requests we'll make that's not funding related. There are times that we'll just be offering a perspective to say, here's what we're seeing from, a different perspective than other partners in the collaborative might have. And then there are other places that we might encourage some learning or some reflection, but it's also not a requirement. So today we're going to focus on the funding requirement part of it. And I know that won't answer every question you have about these 4 aspects, but it'll start to help kind of block out so that you all as partners know really clearly what funding is tied to and kind of what the more official things are, so that you can start to separate out all the ways that we act in informal ways also. So as we talk about funding requirements for the next 2 meetings, our purpose in bringing us together is to share power in that, starting not with an idea of exactly what needs to be reported on, but saying we will have needs around showing the rest of the organization and board how collaboratives are growing. And so please help us design how we're going to communicate that. So we're trying to scale back to just the very minimum thing that we need, and then have the collective build whatever comes on top of that. This is also a chance for us to incorporate feedback that we've gotten from partners. We've heard how different reporting things we've asked for in the past have worked or not worked. So we have a good idea of kind of where we think partners are at, but we want to talk those pieces through. Our hope is to hit a good balance of being consistent and flexible. So find something that works, know that you're going to get that from us as long as it works and that you will get consistency. We're not just going to be like questioning and reevaluating things continuously just for the fun of it, but also knowing that we're going to be flexible, that if something is not working, we will change it, but that it will be logical of why we're changing it. And it's because something has come up that is competing with our want to be consistent. Okay, next slide. So we, as a team, the 3 of us have been kind of thinking through where the authority lies to kind of say what a successful collaborative might look like, and then who holds everyone accountable to that vision. So this is kind of a typical way that funders work. Staff who's closest to a grantee takes the authority to say what they think a successful grant term would look like. They tell the board, and then the board holds the partner accountable. It totally leaves community partners being on the receiving end of people telling them what they should be doing and when and what it looks like. So next slide. What we are kind of trying to work on, and this is a way to do that, is something that us as a team and you all as partners can agree on, that structures what we're measuring, how we're communicating growth, learning, progress in our kind of core model areas. We would like for us all together to take the authority of what that looks like and communicate it to the board, and they will hold all of us accountable to what we say we'll do. So we're trying to get the authority piece out of United Way so that you all have the power to say, here's what we would like to report on, here's where we think we're headed, here's the information that the board can expect to get to us. And then that leaves our board just in a position to say, great, you said we would get this from you, please give it to us. You've met what you said you wanted to do, and kind of takes some of the power out of us and our organization, and an attempt to share it with you all as a collective. All right, slide. Do we have 1 second to see if there are questions about that section before I hand it over to Lise? Anything immediately bubbling up? Okay, with us so far. Cool. Go for it, Elise.
Awesome. Great. So to just add a little bit more context around, what the reporting requirements look like. We have this kind of idea of form and freedom. So I have 2 pictures here on the side, the top one being jazz music. And I was thinking about, like, what is core like? How is this collaborative systems change work? Like, what is it like in the real world? And I was thinking of it like jazz music, where you have kind of a basic form, like to play in, or a rhythm, or basic rules for how to play instruments together. And those kind of basic rules create the space for the freedom of creating with different instruments, shining at different points, and improvisation. So that's something co-created and new. And that's really kind of the interplay that we want to hit here, with, again, the form of core and what we will ask for reporting and for kind of staying accountable, but then also the freedom to create and innovate and experiment and all that good stuff. So like Molly mentioned, United Way of Snohomish County, as the originator and primary accountability partner of CORE, we have these clear guidelines and requirements for this work, but we are aiming to dictate as little as possible to allow each collaborative its own space to really co-create and co-own its vision and what the work looks like. So we, United Way, provides basic form in the key elements of CORE, which is what we'll call the core building blocks. And then each collaborative has the freedom to set its vision, dream up the work, and determine how to put it into action. And these core building blocks are the non-negotiables of the core work, so they will remain constant. These are the things that have been from the beginning, and we've been learning and growing in our understanding of them, but they will continue, through the life cycle of this core strategy, and kind of the core movement that we're all building. So we chose these building blocks based on demonstrated need in our county, in particular around supporting young children. Also a desire to impact root causes that make lasting change rather than solely focusing on programming work that acts more as a Band-Aid to a wound that continues to bleed. And then we also obviously focused on a shift towards equity and ensuring that families with lived experience guide the work. And anything not on this list that you see here of the who, what, and how is flexible. So that's where there's freedom to reimagine, define, and create. I was also thinking of this like a compass for any mountaineers or other adventurers. You can use a compass not in the mountains. But we're not necessarily giving each like a map to follow or a clear marked out path, but these kind of fundamentals of core can act like orientation points on a compass. So they give us some direction to make or to follow as we kind of make our paths within core. So I'll just run through these core buildings in these three categories real quick. The what, who, and how. And I know that my internet connection is kind of unstable today, so please let me know if you are unable to hear me.
It is getting a little bit worse than it was in the beginning.
Shoot. Okay. Well, is it still not great right now?
Do you want me to start talking about this so you can move inside?
Yeah, that would be great. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, you can kick it off, Molly.
Yeah. So these hopefully should not be a surprise. These are the things that we talk about all the time that show up in all the grant agreements, and we also focus our support in to try to, you know, build capacity to be able to make these things happen. So this is, you know, what we're trying to do right now is strip away all the stuff we've piled on top of these basic requirements. You know, your questions about theory of change or theory of action or different reporting pieces and all this stuff that has gotten mixed in with this, and say, these are the basics. These are the things that now for 2-3 year chunks of time we've asked you to do. And so our reporting just needs to demonstrate these things. And it doesn't really matter to us how that happens. You know, if we're engaging in systems change together, it makes sense that we need a way to demonstrate systems change is happening, or be able to talk about it or come to some agreement of, you know, how we show that. But the logistics of that are up for this group to decide. And next time, we're actually going to just dig into some actual decisions around those things. So this session is really just kind of getting clear in the things that we talk about and we ask for and are kind of just the basics of our non-negotiables. So we ask that collaboratives work on systems change. We ask that some part of that is new, that it doesn't, you know, that programming and aligning what exists can be part of it, but that it's not all of it. That it serves the core population, no surprise there, and that there are elements of collaboration that we get to be part of and that families get to be part of too. Elise, what are your remaining thoughts?
Thanks. No, that's great. I will just call out particularly on the who section. This is the 2Gen aspect of the work. You'll notice we did not particularly say Aspen 2Gen, and we'll get into that again in our next conversation. But we're really calling out, as we have seen be the reality in collaboratives, that it's families with all generations of caregivers, you know, bio, non-bio, whatever it ends up looking like for families. But as long as there are children aged 0 to 8 in the family, that's really who the design of this work must primarily benefit, are low-income families with young children aged 0 to 8. So even though there may be ripple effects out into broader population categories, which is a good thing, collaboratives designed for families with young children. It's really the target population. So let's see what else. With the under how collective impact / collaboration, I added that / because we often use these words interchangeably. It's really collaboratives doing collective impact work, which is really the highest stakes version of collaboration. And if anyone has questions, I know that, you know, folks, we have folks who are new to the core collaboratives on this call and folks that are old hands and have been around since the beginning. But if you would like any resources on learning more about collective impact work and kind of the 5 key themes or elements of collective impact work, I'm happy to share articles or help people learn more about that. But it's really about sharing turf, really high trust, so that we can get into, like Molly mentioned, the experimentation and innovation part of systems change beyond creating new programs or navigating what already exists or aligning systems. That it's really that population level change around a problem that the collaborative gets to choose. So yeah, that's any questions from folks before we hop over into breakout rooms just to think through this and react to this as a group? Any clarifying info needed?
I have a curiosity that just came to mind in this moment. To have a breakout to talk about reactions somewhat to what we're saying, but also to us. Is it more helpful for us to join you in breakout rooms or not join you in breakout rooms? Either is fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go into our breakout rooms, and y'all can feel free to kick Amanda and Molly and I out if you
Absolutely.
would like. How does that sound? There can be like a code word or something. You can decide what it is. All right, I'm gonna open up the breakout rooms, and
Elise, do you have any specific ask for folks? Just kind of sit with this and chat about it.
Yep, I think sit with this, chat about it. If this sounds different than how you had been picturing it or understanding it, that's a great conversation to have. If this lines up, that's awesome. So I think just see where kind of everybody is at and how this is across collaboratives, if everybody kind of falls into a place of agreement across collaboratives too. So, well, we have a little bit of time to share back as a big group. Anything that stood out in people's groups or any comments that you'd like to float to the larger group? Anybody? Any of the non-negotiables come as a surprise to anybody? Hopefully not.
I was reminded in my group, of really the power of collective impact, right? Just getting everybody, at the same table and hearing about, what each of us does and where the gaps are and how we might collaborate with one another to fill those gaps. It was one of my favorite things initially about the core collaborative, and I'm still seeing it, even in today's meeting new people and hearing about what they do and how we can work together to make even more things happen. So it's just it just reinforces my faith in the power of putting our heads together to get more done. I also, just one more quick comment. I wanted to say, Elise, I loved your jazz picture because, as the wife of a jazz musician, that is where the magic happens, is those unplanned parts of the music. Yes, you have the form and the song, but it's those in the moment, improv pieces that really are where the magic happens. So I just wanted to say I really appreciated that metaphor.
So glad. We also talked in our group about jazz. Melissa is a big jazz fan, so I'm sure. Yeah. Molly, were you gonna say something? Saw you unmute yourself.
I was just gonna share a little bit from room 3 so that I didn't put anyone in that group on the spot. I would say one of the takeaways from our conversation was just like, yeah, great. We can agree that engaging families and measuring systems change and all those things are where we need to be, but actually making that tangible and like, how do you turn that into a reporting logistic. How do you measure it? How do you communicate those things? What are the barriers? Can get kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so it was a good feedback for me to just acknowledge that these are really hard concepts to plan, do, and then measure the outcome around. And that, we don't expect that in 90 minutes, we're going to come up with a group decision on how exactly to measure systems change. Like, we might not even get a lot of clarity in the next couple of years. Like, it may be something that is really qualitative, or we just look back and kind of chart what we have seen change, that we will approach it acknowledging its complexity.
Yeah, it can be very emergent, for sure. Great. Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. All right. So, first of all, I learned how to put a GIF into a PowerPoint. So that's great. We get to watch it in slow-mo because it probably just is larger to load, but felt like this GIF was very relevant to what reporting has felt like at times over the last couple years, that we will kind of, pick something we're excited about, bring it down the runway, and then it totally flops. So yeah, we would be remiss to not acknowledge that reporting up to this point has definitely had some challenging and frustrating moments for both collaboratives and United Way. And so just wanted to quickly just create some space to think through that, remember that, acknowledge that. What we needed and wanted to do originally was design a way for collaboratives to report on these fundamental aspects of core work, the non-negotiable core building blocks. But we got tripped up, I think, most notably in getting really prescriptive about the function and the work of the collaborative, with kind of the theory of action and the theory of change being the foremost among those examples. And, getting prescriptive is really where we've, started to infringe upon the freedom, that form and freedom aim. And so that's kind of, I think, I would say that's been one of our biggest fails and lessons learned as we've been going through this work. But, we've also struggled to identify a tool that captures the info that we need in a really efficient and useful way. And how quickly we've switched tools has felt like whiplash for everybody, us, I think, as United Way of Snohomish County included. So we've just never really laid a clear picture and vision for reporting on core. But I think it is important to note that we've all been learning and growing in this work. We've said this time and time again, but it's good to be reminded of that regularly, especially in a culture that we kind of feel pressure to get it right, from the start and to hurry through things. It's good to take a moment to reflect on the fact that this is new to all of us at the start, and through the professional development that we've all done, hopefully you've all been able to make some of those Zoom calls with Sylvia focused on systems change, or with various folks around 2Gen and supporting young children earlier last year. With as we've learned, we know better now what we're doing and what we need. And it's, we recognize now that there isn't necessarily a step-by-step guide for systems change and collective impact work. We know ingredients of successful collaborative and systems change initiatives, but the process isn't so linear. So as we, think ahead, I mean, for the rest of this meeting, but also for the next meeting that we have, we're really hoping to co-define and co-create with you all around measuring and reporting, so that we avoid falling into the water off the runway again. So next slide.
So our hope, like I said in the beginning, is to get away from reporting being something that's transactional, that you owe us, and is done just because we say it needs to be done. We were kind of reflecting as a team on this upcoming conversation and thinking about, well, needs for information aren't unique to us. Any of us in this nonprofit space are used to having to demonstrate growth or success or outcomes. We need to learn for ourselves. So, I kind of thought about it and I was like, really, probably there's a world where we all need information for ourselves and for other people, for the partnership, for United Way, for additional funders the collaboratives want to engage, to show the community that we're making an impact. We are assuming that every one of us shares a need to be able to show our work. And so we want to start there and not say, this is something we need that's good for us that you have to do, but saying, okay, we have a couple non-negotiables, which we hope are, we've made clear enough and we'll continue to make clear. Assuming those things, how do we design a world where we get what we need as a collective partnership, to show that this work is happening and it's worth it. Just like we always have to demonstrate, there's a reason for us to do this versus business as usual, or there's a reason for us to do this versus other similar programs and collectives. So how do we focus on the things that will benefit all of us equally? So next time, we are going to talk about, in those 5 areas that Elise went over, if we've asked systems change to happen, what kind of reporting or what kind of learning, conversations, information are we all going to gather on systems change? If we've asked that families are served, what reporting and information and do we all need to be gathering about families? So we're going to go through each of them and make a group decision on how that happens, and saying, we accept that we're doing 2Gen, but Aspen is not serving us right now is an okay thing to say. Saying, yes, we want to measure collaboration, but theory of action is not the thing, is fine to say. Each of those categories, we're really open in what information gathering and learning looks like. And we'd like to get to a place where exactly what we're going to ask of you because you told us that it was okay to ask that of you. And you communicate to us, here's what you can expect of us. And then we come back and say, great, you told us what to expect. How's it going? Take out the guesswork of reporting and feeling like you kind of never know what we're going to say or what we're thinking, or what might put your funding in jeopardy. I remember years and years and years of being a grantee and kind of always wondering what the funder was thinking and if things had secret strings attached and what conversations I had with them came with judgment and what were just casual. And so we are actively trying to demystify those things for you all, because that's honestly one of the systems changes that we are working on, is how do we become a different funder than other funders, but even than we've been in the past. And so we are conscious of our impact in the community, and we are trying to change it. So we have a bit more time for additional questions, thoughts. You need kind of more information about next time to get your mind ready for it. We stop sharing for a second, Amanda, so I can see people's faces.
So
How's their
Molly,
sitting?
Molly, I'd like to thank you and the team for some really deep reflective thinking. And I know it's hard to say, I will say it's hard for me sometimes to say I've done wrong, I didn't approach this right, or we made mistakes. And so kudos for saying it and for being reflective and intentional in today's meeting.
Thanks, Sonia. It's not something that we as a society are used to saying. It comes with a lot of stuff to unpack around, am I a bad person? Was that my fault? Does it say something about me? And as a team, we're trying to challenge that and just be like, no, this is messy. We're learning, you know, we'll put our best intention into it at the time, but things will change.
Yeah, I wanted to echo that. Thank you from Sonia. And then, I mean, the other thing I would add is like reporting as part of a collaborative is really different than any other reporting I have to do, because I'm the expert on the program area that I'm reporting on for most of like our grants and other contracts. And it's okay to have just like one voice going through the document and the reflections and stuff. But as I was working on our Peergy grant update, I sent some stuff to Arhelia, but I was very aware that like, it's just my voice. This is, I mean, like, I really hope other people are also including theirs as well. And then you have to have someone to be able to synthesize all of that. And I don't think it's fair to put that all on Arhelia. I don't know what our bigger plan is around that, but it's just challenging to make sure that you get every perspective from the collaborative members into the reporting process.
Absolutely. We haven't talked about this as a team, and so we certainly won't hammer it out next session, but you made me think of one of the trust-based philanthropy kind of principles, which is funders collecting the information they think they're seeing and then checking it with partners to share some of the work in that kind of wide view collection period. And so, you know, we'd have to think through how that would work and what our team's capacity is, but that's definitely a conversation we can have, is like, what are the things that we collect or write and then, you know, run by everyone to potentially avoid the 15-person writing situation, which is just a messy logistical piece of collaborative work.
Thank you for mentioning that, Sarah. And I really appreciate what United Way perspective, and being really vulnerable. It's really refreshing to see. We ask for a lot of grace, so I'd like to give grace back, and so we need to be being grace to each other, about that in the learning process. It is messy, and I think that one of the biggest challenges it is making sure that every piece of the puzzle is included every time that you are reporting, and that everybody's efforts and accomplished success and barriers, are included. So, and it is trying to find how to do that. Yeah, it's hard, Fortunately, it has to be one person gathering everything, and put it together. So there's never a easy solution to that, but I'd love to hear any innovations on that one. Yeah.
We are also trying to model what we expect to see across the community. This is really messy experimental work. And so just like we are trying to, say that mistakes and learning and evolution is part of our own work, the three of us, I fully expect that that will be such a big part of the collaborative's work as well. And so please don't ever hesitate to say, the thing we thought didn't happen, we tried something, it failed. We're going to try something new. We know more than we did last year. Those are all, absolute fair game progress pieces of this work. So when we ask for reporting and growth and success, it will be largely around, what did you think? What did you try? We are going to be less, stuck on whether a particular thing you tried worked or not.
Yeah, I think it takes a long time for us to know whether or not it worked, not within like the 6th or 12th month or 18th month reporting period, could be years down the road before we know whether or not it was successful.
One thing I'll also point out that you're not seeing in this conversation is we're not asking you to scale. We're not asking you to serve, progressively more and more people. And we're not asking you to prove that families are benefiting from your existence, because when you get together a group of nonprofits who are used to serving families, that's just kind of an assumption. I assume that you all are in the community supporting families. You don't need to prove to us as a funder that that's happening. We're really looking for reporting to be the higher level stuff of the work that you all are doing as a collaborative. Sorry, Melissa, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it strikes me that there's a systems change happening here in the way that reporting is done. And as we together go through this process, my sense is that we will identify what are some practices that are helping the system change take hold with us that perhaps we can then apply within our own collaborative. So I think it's just kind of a double learning, but this is an experiment in itself in terms of the system change that is happening here related to reporting.
Yeah, I love that, Melissa. I think that there's so much power that we have as pieces within the system, that when we start these changes within our own organizations and how we interact with each other, it's the start of good things.
It also signals the timeline. We've spent nearly 4 years building relationships with all the people on this Zoom to be able to have the learning and the trust to have this conversation. So if you're feeling stressed about how long your relationships and systems change are happening in the community, just remember that it's taken us 4 years to get here together.
Yeah, I just heard someone say that systems change and collaborative work happens at the speed of trust. It's true.
Any additional questions or comments before we end for today.
I had one question, and I apologize, my internet connection's slow. Can you guys understand me?
Yeah.
So for some of the non-negotiables, as far as how we're measuring that, is that still up for negotiation a lot, or like is United Ways brainstorming some ways to measure some of those non-negotiables? Like, is that going to be consistent? I'm just curious if there's been any thought. And I know we'll talk about that more in the next meeting, but I was just wondering about the more consistent part of that across collaboratives, like how that will work.
It's absolutely up for decision by you all. It's hard to just come up with that on the spot. So we have some, potential ideas that we can throw in. But it's going to be very much in the form of like, okay, you all really hated the theory of action, but we need to measure collaboration somehow. We've seen Tamarack has a checklist that they use. That's an option. So-and-so uses this other thing. We have no like preferences or decisions we as a team have already made that we're going to secretly try to get you to agree or decide on. But we will help the brainstorming along so that we don't just bring you together and say, great, how are you going to measure systems change? And then expect you to answer.
Yeah, I
Great,
think
thank you.
too, with the non-negotiables, the children with families 0 to 8, what we're finding without scaling, our children are now out of that age group, and our services have been helping them navigate now middle and high school. And so it shifted that. That's one thing that's changed this year that we didn't have last year, is more collaboration with middle and high schools. And so, and then more difficulty obtaining families within the 0 to 8-year-old range. So that's just something we're experiencing.
I mean, that's your own learning to process through. And if it comes with scaling, you'll know what to do. I just don't want any of that pressure to come from us. I've had grants that say, great, serve 20 people the first year and 100 people the second year.
Mm-hmm.
And that has really dramatically shaped how I built the work. And so we're trying to take that pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's also, probably interesting reflection to be had there around the program aspect and the systems change aspect, and that whole idea of, who are we designing for when we design interventions for the system, and, how does that interplay work with the program that we use as kind of our lab space to test things out. So yeah, like Molly said, great reflection space or topic.
It goes back to what David said, if a school designs a system that is trying to serve every family universally, some are not going to feel seen. And so how do you design for families with young kids specifically, and then have additional positive benefit to other groups as the second piece, instead of trying to design something for the whole universe of families and having, the trickle down benefit being to the core population. Great. So for next time, our ask of you is just to be thinking through ideas and thoughts about reporting so far, so that when we say, hey, what are your thoughts on 2Gen? What's worked, what hasn't? You will put a little thought into, what's worked for you about Aspen? Do you have any motivation to change it? Is it still working? Think back to our reporting pieces around what's worked for narratives or partner calls. Any thoughts that you have about what's happened so far, I think will be a good starting place. I really appreciate you all. Thank you for being in this conversation and in this work with us. It's difficult and really fun to be in this, trying to change our community. So, glad to be with you.
Thank you.
Anything
all.
else, Elise or Amanda, before we take off?
I don't think so.
Elise, can you remind us of the date that we're meeting in November?
I can.
Is it the 16th?
It
That sounds
is
right.
the
Okay.
No,
No?
it is the 9th.
Okay,
The 9th at 10 a.m. everybody.
cool. See you all November 9th, same time. All
Great.
right, have a great rest of your day.